Good morning, guys. I thought I'd start. It's happening here to some degree. It's funny to me that people assume when I preach a series like this one we're in, entitled For the Brand, where I'm basically just reminding people to behave, act with some integrity. People assume that when a sermon series like this is taking place, that there's something on fire. There's some horrible problem taking place, and I'm trying to indirectly address it. And honestly, no. I mean, there is nothing, at least here, I don't think of anything there. If there is, ain't nobody telling me. There's nothing going on like that. It's just, a long time ago, but as I told you a few weeks ago, I got to thinking heading into the summer. We've got ballparks. This is a year-round thing, but we'll be at the ballpark and vacations and everything. I just wanted to remind me that we have a brand. I've got a guy here, he's a youth pastor, he's more of an associate really, but he made that point. I never thought about it like that we have a brand. I mean, our behavior, our integrity, or our lack thereof reflects on something. If you're a Christ follower, your integrity or lack thereof reflects on something that's more than you, that is just bigger than you. And I think particularly, and this is my perception, in our culture in which the individual is king, I think we need to be reminded of that big picture on occasion. And the second thing I wanted to do this whole series, was to really positively reinforce the way we as a church, and I mean the church here in Indiana, but I think you guys at Simplicity would have dealt with it the same way. I wanted to reinforce the way we dealt with the whole alcohol thing that I told you about this last week. I mean, the easiest thing to do anytime a church or any community like this, I would assume, has an issue would be for your governing board or your elders or whatever just to start making policies. We just make policies. I've been around churches that they've got pages, literally pages and pages and pages of policies. It's like there's no need to even talk about stuff. There's a policy for that. And I realize that some policies are necessary. They really are, but making and growing disciples of Jesus Christ, which is ultimately what we're about, is always a messy, often difficult process. I mean, there's agreeing and there's disagreeing and there's praying and there's searching Scripture, and at times we've got to just gracefully agree to disagree about stuff. That's not always easy. It's just not. I mean, I know this is obvious, but it seems like, it is. God is just too big to fit in any of our boxes, any particular box. I mean, no one person can always be right about stuff. And now, especially when the Bible allows for freedom on an issue. And that's key. When the Bible allows for freedom on a particular issue, because on some things it doesn't allow for freedom. It's very clear yes or no. But when the Bible does allow for freedom, and we agree and we disagree, and the mess is allowed, I mean, our elders here allow it, I actually encourage it. When we do that and we remain one and we remain unified, I just think that's amazing for the brand. I mean, with all the division and, man, I want to re-preach that message. I just think that's extraordinary for the brand. Let me tell you personally why I'm so passionate about this brand stuff, and this will be familiar to most of you guys there, and then we'll move on. When I went to Oklahoma, it's been almost 4 years ago now, what I was doing there technically was called a parachute drop. It's a church start, a church plant, but the style, it's a parachute drop. The commission agreed to pay me for 3 years, and they wanted to help, and they tried to help, but they all had their own church homes and stuff like that, so they weren't actually going to come with me. It was basically just me, my Bible, and go. You can have a street corner, you can do whatever, just go start a church. And in that process, I talked to a lot of people, usually in Midtown, but I talked to a lot of people that didn't go to church. And of all those conversations, there were two primary reasons why they didn't. Now, they probably won't surprise you. The first one was, honestly, they didn't see the point. They just honestly didn't see the point. They didn't even think about going to church. It wasn't necessarily negative for them. They just honestly didn't have the foggiest clue why they should, or what the church was supposed to be about, or, again, why they should even bother with it. I mean, they had some vague Jesus, heaven or hell thing, but nothing that would affect their daily lives, right? Now, I want you to contrast that with something written by a sociologist by the name of Rodney Stark. Now, in his book, The Rise of Christianity, and I'm just going to read this to you. I don't like to just read stuff, but listen, this is huge. In his book entitled The Rise of Christianity, Stark examines the rise of Christianity from a small movement in Galilee and Judea at the time of Jesus to the majority religion of the Roman Empire a few centuries later. One paragraph. He points to a number of advantages that Christianity had over paganism to explain its growth. While others fled cities, Christians stayed in urban areas during plague, ministering and caring for the sick. Further, Christian populations actually grew due to persecution. Christians willingly went to their martyrdom while praying for their captors, which added credibility to their evangelism. Women were valued and allowed to participate in worship, which led to a high rate of secondary conversion, whereas in paganism, men always outnumbered women. Now, Stark's, and these are my words, Stark's basic thesis was that ultimately Christianity triumphed over paganism because it improved the quality of life of its adherents. Now, let me ask you, based on the little bit that you've just heard, how did an obscure, marginal Jesus movement become the dominant religion in the Western world in just a few centuries? And for you goobers out there, Christianity was a big deal before Constantine, but now, how? How did that happen? I think the answer just comes down to a word, don't you think? It's just love. I mean, so somehow we have gone from this brand of crazy kind of love. I mean, these are the people that are running in when everybody else is running out. We're known for that, to, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but to like obscurity, just to sort of perceived irrelevance, you know? I mean, in Oklahoma City there is a cross on top of a building on nearly every street corner. But why? Here's the second thing I discovered in just talking to people. Beyond indifference, can you guess the second biggest reason I found out that people didn't go to church? I'm sure you know. It's what? It's just good old garden variety nasty Christians. Just nasty behaving Christians. Surprised? I mean, we have a brand. And so given this, I want to spend just one more week talking about how we fight. Because we're going to fight. We ought to fight. I mean, if we never go head to head about anything, somebody ain't speaking up. You know, it's like a good marriage. Fighting can be good, but how? That's always the question. How do you fight? I mean, that matters because the kids are watching. Fair enough? Okay. From this point forward, I want to be a little bit more personal because I've observed, and I think this is correct, that oftentimes church fights look a lot like couple fights. And they really do. Think about it. I wouldn't be embarrassed at all if you were to secretly videotape Michelle and I having a fight over a significant issue. And yes, things can get heated, and yeah, usually you lose. I'm not going to say always. I'm not ready to give up just that quickly, but I usually do. We've been married for 25 years now, and so when we're fighting about something that is important, and that's key, when it's something that's important, it really never gets nasty or personal. I mean, we have common goals and a shared faith, but you know, you let a little stress enter a conversation, maybe a little exhaustion. I don't know, maybe the kids are being turds, or I'm in pain somewhere, I'm hurting. It's often the case. I mean, you add all that up and you stir it around and a little bit like that and just boom, off we can go. I mean, we can, over a sink load of dirty dishes, we can have World War III. And it sounds funny, but the Bible says this: reckless words pierce like a sword. I think that's amazing. If you're willing, repeat that with me. Reckless words pierce like a sword. Isn't that true? I mean, it doesn't matter at home, at church, that is absolutely true. I mean, at home we have tantrums, some of us yell, some of us pout. Again, it's usually over the silliest things. We'll just start swinging that sword. And at church, I think one of I don't know, the most popular, the common ways we swing the sword is just gossip. And we don't call it gossip around church. We call it sharing concerns, don't we? I mean, in church, we like to preface our slander with things like, you know, I really love that Charlie, but did you hear? Or there is, down south, you guys, we don't say it as much up here, but down south, it's like, bless Catherine's heart, but did you hear? Or could we please pray for Brian? You know what I heard, da-da-da-da. It just goes from there. I mean, in church, it's like we like to dress up our tantrums and our gossip. I mean, we can offer it electronically, which doesn't count. I mean, if you're doing it on the keyboard, it doesn't count at all, right? We put Easter bonnets on it and patent leather shoes. We make it look nice, but at the end of the day, our words still can cut, and they hurt, and they harm. And as much as it embarrasses me to admit it, sometimes I think that the people that I talk to there in Midtown in Oklahoma City made a really good point. I mean, sometimes church folks can just be nasty. And that's where I think we should begin, with just an honest admission, because that's where healing and hope always begins. Maybe it's in your house. Maybe it's at church. It can be at church, but at some point, all of us will swing that sword a little bit. And we could all use a little bit of improvement as it pertains to, our communication skills and our conflict resolution. Fair enough? All of us. All right. I want to begin here with the scripture, with this just wonderful bit from the book of James. This is in the 3rd chapter, and I want to read it from the Message paraphrase because you can't hide from this. I don't know if Jamie's going to put it on the screen or not. If not, that's good. I just want you to listen. James 3, we'll read the first 12 verses. Listen to what he says. A bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. A small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. It only takes a spark, remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony into chaos, throw mud on our reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it, smoke right from the pit of hell. This is scary, James continues. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. The tongue runs wild, a wanton killer. With our tongues we bless God our Father, and with the same tongues we curse the very men and women He made in His image. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. My friends, this can't go on. A spring doesn't gush fresh water one day and brackish the next, does it? Apple trees don't bear strawberries, do they? Raspberry bushes don't bear apples, do they? You're not going to dip into a polluted mud hole and get a cup of clear, cool water, are you? And I just love and all at the same time hate the way he ends there. It reminds me that great communication and sort of conflict skills begin inside. It starts inside me. Bad isn't naturally going to flow out of good, is it? And, nobody wants to believe that. I would far rather blame my tantrums on Michelle. I mean, it's her fault because there's only sweetness inside of me. I know you guys know that. I am just as sweet as they come. But do you remember what Jesus said? What comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. And this is what defiles. For out of the heart comes, listen to this, for out of the heart comes evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, and slander. And guys, I realize this doesn't feel good. We always want to believe that our way forward to great communication, to a great brand, begins on the outside of us. I mean, it's his fault, or it's her fault, or it's this context, or it's that context. And 99% of the time, maybe you're right. But Jesus always has this way of taking us deeper, doesn't he? Our individual role in putting down the sword and living at peace with everyone, in building our brand back up, begins in here, inside of me and inside of you. And this is a prayer journey. It's an inward journey. It's one of surrender. And I won't try to tell you it's easy. You'd know better. Nor is it the same for everybody. But I want to share something that's helped me. It has for years. On my dad's wall, there in his study, he's got a little framed quote that I gave him years and years and years ago. And this really speaks to both of us, both he and I, because we're cut out of the same cloth. And he could tell you what it is. Dad, go ahead. I mean, anger is the wind that blows out the flame of the mind. That's true, isn't it? I mean, when I feel my sort of temperature rising, when I feel the words starting to come, and we can feel them actually coming, I've actually, over the years, I'd like to believe this is spiritual maturity, maybe it's age, maybe it's both, but I've actually gotten better about stopping and asking myself a few questions. I heard Andy Stanley offer these forever ago, and personally I think that these are just brilliant. What he did was he used the word think as an acronym, and he had 5 questions to ask yourself before, engaging. Here they are. The first is true. Is what I'm about to say true? And I think we should remember this as it pertains to gossip. I mean, usually the more interesting something is, the less likely it is to be true. The next one is helpful. Are the words that I'm about to speak actually going to bring about a solution to the problem? Is there any constructive value there? Are they inspiring? That's the next word, is inspiring. Will my words build up or will they tear down? Necessary. That's the next one, necessary. Is it really necessary to say anything at all? Or do you just really want to? There's a difference there. And finally, kind. Are the words really coming from a place, a desire to help? You think. Anger is the wind that blows out the flame of the mind. You think and consider that if the answer to any one of those questions is no, maybe the best way forward is just sort of not to say anything. And sometimes we've got to speak up. Sometimes we have to engage. Sometimes we have to fight. Wouldn't it be nice if in our homes and in all of our relationships, certainly in our church, definitely for our brand, if we could figure out and sort of decide beforehand if the intentions of our words, of our passion, was grounded in love. You think. Let me close like this. Guys, I realize we can't control perception. People in Midtown and everywhere else, they're going to think what they're going to think. But I still, like I said the first week, I don't think this excuses us from striving for integrity. And years ago, Michelle and I here in Indiana there's a little town just to the north of us called Huntsville. And we were at a retirement celebration for a pastor there, just a phenomenal man. His name is Claude Creel. And I remember his wife standing up and stating that Claude was the same man at home as he was in the pulpit. And I was a lot younger then. I remember thinking, always? Seriously? Always? I mean, she can't mean always, but I just think that is so cool. I mean, that kind of integrity, that kind of love, even when we're fighting, especially when we're fighting love. Anything less, and it doesn't matter how right you think you are, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Anything less than love, when we're engaging, anything less than love, it's bad for the brand. Love you guys. I am so proud of you. I'll see you soon.